Shields up, Ironbreakers. Rurikhan here, coming at you with another video, and today I wanted to talk about the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. This title was sent to me by EA under the Gamechangers program, so I could give it a look and tell you guys my opinions on it. I only use the Gamechangers program to request game codes in the same way I request codes from Capcom, PlayStation, Nintendo, and other publishers. I do not receive any additional compensation or perks. Now for this video, I wanted to bring in a Mass Effect specialist. So I got my good friend Q on a call, and he's someone who's finished the original trilogy multiple times, and he already completed the Legendary Edition. And when I say completed, I mean he did every single side quest in each of the Mass Effect games on the Legendary Edition, which, in case you're not aware, that's a lot. Also, he's a Dutchie, so English is not his native language. Please be kind. Now, while there will be gameplay in the background during this discussion, I made sure to only show quests that don't really spoil anything relevant to the main plot. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. So, before we get started with this, how many times did you actually complete Mass Effect before this? The different games? Because you keep telling me about this.
Ooh, the first game, I think I finished. Well, yeah, let me think. 4 or 5 different classes: Vanguard, Technician, Biotic, Soldier.
So once for each of the classes?
Yeah, and I think twice for Soldier. Because to be fair, on the first game, Mass Effect 1, the only proper way to do it on Insanity is where you play kind of Soldier. At least it was in the past. So at least 5. I think Mass Effect 2, 7 to 8 times, and Mass Effect 3 I've done the least. But I played a lot of multiplayer. I've done them, I think, 4 times
So
in total.
that's a whole lot of playthroughs. This is just so that you guys are aware of the fact that I'm bringing in a complete Mass Effect pro, but probably someone who is also terribly biased towards Mass Effect, I guess. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword there. So
Yep.
before we get into the gameplay aspects of stuff and the visuals and all that, like what was your thoughts when you learned that they were remastering the game, and does it even make sense for them to remaster it, considering that you played it on the PC?
Yeah, I was truly happy actually. It was, yeah, it sounds maybe bad, an excuse to go back into the story. Um, like I've tried to play Mass Effect 1 again, and one of the things which was a challenge was the gameplay. Like the story, amazing, but the gameplay was quite tricky. And then if the graphics also start to fall behind, it becomes even harder to get into the game again. So I was quite happy that they made a new remastered edition where yeah, the visuals are a bit more up to date, while keeping the story in yeah, the original form. So I was really happy about it.
Yeah, because one of the things about Mass Effect, I feel like, is that there's not a lot of RPGs like Mass Effect. Like, even just off the top of my mind, I can maybe think of a couple of games, but they're still not really close to what you get from the original Mass Effect experience, right?
No, like if I think story wise, a few games which I enjoyed the story as well are like The Witcher or the old Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, but see,
Um,
that's the thing. Those are fantasy games, and I feel like
yeah,
once you go into the fantasy realm, then yes, there's a ton of games in the fantasy realm. But when you're talking about specifically a sci-fi RPG with like multiple choices and stuff, I guess we got maybe Knights of the Old Republic. That is something that people always bring up, which, if I remember correctly, that's also by BioWare, right? I'm not
yeah.
mixing that up. Yeah. So you got that, which also gives you a couple of choices, even though it's a different kind of like sci-fi universe. But besides that, there's very little in the sci-fi realm that gives you the Mass Effect experience.
I can't think of any.
Yeah, exactly. That's precisely the point, which is one of the reasons why I was like, you know what? Diving back into Mass Effect might not be like the worst thing ever. Now, you played it on PC, I played it on console, and I'll be honest, I didn't notice that much. I mean, the first time that I played on PC as well. Because I was actually going to only play Mass Effect 2 because I got it for free when I bought Dragon Age 2. Because that was so dumb. I was like, I'm gonna buy Dragon Age 2 and I'm gonna get Mass Effect 2 for free, so I guess I'll play it. But I wasn't like interested in it at all. But a friend of mine, Sidestrafe, he told me, no, you gotta buy the first one, play that one, and then import your save into the second. So he's actually someone who's responsible for me actually enjoying the crap out of Mass Effect, because playing that same character consistently through the 3 games is really cool, and that is one thing that you can do with the Legendary Edition, just like you could do with the old ones. But I guess the important thing is you were specifically talking about visuals. So the visuals, you noticed the big difference on the PC side of things between the original Mass Effect and the remastered Mass Effect 1 specifically.
Yeah, Mass Effect 1 visually was a whole lot better. I must make a side note, like certain upgrades didn't help the characters you were watching. For example, you have what is it, Admiral Anderson. Um, like the brown color didn't get enough attention. It had a lot of white spots in it, which kind of made it a bit awkward. Um, and for the rest, like they recreated the worlds which you could drive on with the Mako. Um, like you don't need to do much, but a bit more. They could have done more into the visual of the world. They didn't need to put a lot in, but like a bit more of mobs or of vegetation wouldn't have been bad.
Yeah, just stuff that would make the world feel more alive. Because those worlds do kind of feel like pretty barren. It's like they have your mission objectives and you drive straight to them, and there might be a couple of minerals segregated off somewhere that you might have to go and get. But besides that, those planets are kind of like, okay, here's this one objective that you're supposed to do in this planet, and that's it. There's nothing else on the whole goddamn planet. They did add some vegetation on some of them. I at least I noticed that they added like some call it, some grass stuff on some of them that I don't think were in the original. And one of the planets also had like a really cool, at least when I went there, it had like this really cool horizon sunset going on. A lot of lens flares. They added lens flares pretty much everywhere they could.
Yeah, they did.
They're just
That
like,
was
oh
a
man,
big upgrade.
you know what this needs? What? Some lens flares, dude. It'll be so good to distract people that this game is like God knows how many years old by now.
Yeah,
But
it's really old.
I think that the visuals do look a lot better. I played it on PlayStation 5, and I think the game in there looked really good, and it ran pretty well. There were a couple of occasions where I had frame dips. How was your performance on your end for Mass Effect 1?
I didn't really notice any frame dips this time, like compared to the old Mass Effect. It was a whole lot less. But there are a couple of places where they clunked too much into one small space, and there you can notice a bit of a dip in the frame rates.
I had actually forgotten that Mass Effect had some pretty decent physics when some of the spells start going off and stuff starts floating. I was like, oh, right. I forgot they had done that. That's pretty friggin' wild. So in terms of one, there wasn't. I think that there was a difference there. I didn't notice it that much because I only played through the games once. You played through them a lot more, so obviously you noticed it more. I think two though, two was like a massive difference. Like to me, it looked way better than it did before. But at the same time, on the console, like it feels like the contrast is dialed up to 11, and sometimes stuff gets incredibly dark to the point where you only see like brief glimpses of the characters, even because it's so friggin' dark.
I didn't have that issue on the PC. Yeah, on the PC, the darkness wasn't really that bad.
Hmm.
I always could see where I was walking or what was happening. Um, it was truly updated, and I loved the visuals. Also, the cinematics were, in my opinion, a bit better. Still, you can see it's still an old game. I mean,
Yeah.
the lip sync and the way they are their facial expressions. Yeah, it's an old game. You could still see. They look around like through you or without with glass eyes, so to speak, when they're saying something very important, what should have been very emotional.
Yeah, they weren't really
Yeah,
doing like the face capture rigs or stuff like that back in the day,
no,
so they didn't redo that aspect of it as well. One thing that was brought up about the Legendary Edition when it was initially announced was the fact that BioWare started going like, "Oh, we're going to change some of the cutscenes to show less of Miranda's ass and stuff like that." And it's like, I really don't remember too much of those cutscenes. I wish they didn't have touched it, but so far, like I'm halfway into Mass Effect 2. You have played through the whole thing by now. And it's like it didn't really make that much of a difference to me, which again just begs the question, why did they feel the need to change it? It's just dumb.
my feeling, the hunch is the difference compared to the past is what happened in real life. I mean, the hashtag Me Too, the way women have been placed in the world. I think they were afraid that if they kept it the same way and kind of the ass shots are the biggest part of the cinematics, which in my opinion never was. And
Yeah.
when I read it, it was like, really? Is that much in my screen? Um, but yeah, I think that's a part of why they changed it and when they removed small parts, because in my opinion, it isn't even much. It's like a second of frame shot instead of seeing the ass. They stop the shot a bit earlier, or they go back to the face. Um, i- in the visuals, you could sometimes see it due to that the expression again didn't cope or wasn't equal compared to what they were saying. So sometimes it felt a bit off, but
So
not
like,
in a way that it felt as annoying.
yeah, but basically your feeling is that the fact that they cut some of those cutscenes a little bit earlier instead of going to the ass shot, they go to the face, and the face expression isn't really ready for what the characters are talking about because the artists are like, well, during this point we're going to be showing her ass anyway, so it doesn't matter. And you've
Yeah,
noticed that.
yeah. But
Okay.
as I said, I've played the game so many times I can
Yeah, exactly.
nearly say sentence per sentence what they're going to say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was the whole point of having you here, so that you could actually point those things out. Because I had only played the original trilogy through once, so I wouldn't have been able to tell any of that stuff at all. I actually tried comparing some of the cutscenes to the older ones, but I guess I didn't get to the ass shots just yet, or something like that. But yeah,
it's a bit later on, like the moment you get further in and an emotional bond is starting to be created between the characters. There, the ass shots become more and more visible.
yeah.
That
So
that's kind of it. Yeah.
those are kind of like the big differences, but obviously, beyond the fact that they changed up some of the cinematics, it's like the rest of the game is pretty much intact, which makes the whole thing just kind of like, it does feel a little bit virtue signally, like, oh yeah, we're going to remove some of the ass shots, whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it affects the experience that much. But you know, visuals in Mass Effect 2, I think, were very much improved. And one, they were improved as well, but I noticed it more on 2 for some reason. And then on 3, I feel like they didn't touch it up as much because for Mass Effect 3, obviously that's the most recent one. So I almost felt that when I quickly went, because the very first day that I played it, I played a little bit of each of them to see what they looked like, and I felt like 3 looked worse than 2. Did you get that vibe as well?
No, not really. I must say the begin part of 3 hasn't been touched. If you get a bit further in the game, you do see a couple of differences.
Okay, so it could be because I just played the very beginning of 3 because I just wanted to see what the game
Yeah,
looked like. And The start of that one is rough, and on the consoles, like the start of Mass Effect 3, the performance was really bad because you're used to going from 1 and 2 where you're pretty much getting 60 FPS, and I think that the resolution they're doing is probably 1440p. I don't actually think it's true 4K. Again, I don't have like an exact way of measuring because I don't have the tools of Digital Foundry. But and in 3, the fact that 1440p was like really struggling at some points to keep up with 30 FPS, I was just like, what the hell is going on? Like the start of 3 feels rough.
It has always been the case, even in the old Mass Effect 3. Like you're on Earth, and a lot is happening. The invasion starts. So they tried in the past already to implement an interactive background. So instead of what you have in Mass Effect 1 and 2, that is kind of static background, which is visually amazing to look at. I mean, I love watching the suns, the planets, the stars in the sky. But suddenly you have Reapers walking around in the background, and you see ships flying, and you see so much going on your screen. Uh, it gave in the past already frame rate dips, and it was the same now. It didn't change in that part. I did turn the graphics a bit down on 3, and then it did go away. So I get a new PC tomorrow. I'm going to try Mass Effect 3 again just to see how it looks on the max the entire time. But yeah, it demands more compared to the other ones, but it's because they visually wanted a more interactive world.
It was more ambitious from a visual standpoint, Mass Effect 3 for sure. But I don't know, for some reason, Mass Effect 3, the visuals and even some of the animations, because I didn't remember how Shepard used to run on Mass Effect 3. But good God, that running animation is jarring. He's like just throwing himself forward, like unga bunga, like it's pretty wild. Like I feel like if they had done it but with today's resources, it would be very different. But good God, that
I
freaking running
agree.
animation is
Like
wild.
the only fast way I loved going forward in Mass Effect 3 is if you're playing a Vanguard and
A
you
Vanguard, and you
yeah,
charge.
and you charge. That one was fucking amazing. It still is.
Yeah,
It's the best way to move forward.
that
But
that's
yeah,
actually that's actually what I plan on playing when I get to Mass Effect 3. I'm gonna do Vanguard. I did Vanguard for one. Vanguard for one was not fun. It was not particularly
no.
good in my opinion. I'm doing Adept for 2, and Adept is hilarious. It's like bong bong, but they changed. I think they changed the balance of it in 2, the balance of some of the abilities, because like I used to just do pull and throw, and it didn't do as much damage. At least I felt like it didn't do as much damage. I was supposed to do pull and warp now. Pull and warp did the
Warp was a
damage.
kind of. I always play with pull and warp, or with warp at least, because that's the detonator of kind of every
Yeah.
ability you kind of can find. Um, yeah, I've played most of the games always on insanity. Like the first, I only Mass Effect 1 I started on normal, and the second time I started playing it was instantly insanity, and I never went back. Don't get me wrong, the frustration level,
Oh yeah.
especially in Mass Effect 1, playing on insanity. If
Yeah,
you're not playing soldier, if you're not playing soldier, it's quite intense.
because you're struggling with the controls, and that is a particular problem with the console aspect of things that I want to get into as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, but before we get to controls, I wanted to touch up on audio. Did you notice a lot of differences in audio at all throughout the 3 games?
Not that much.
Yeah.
For me, the audio wasn't different compared to the voices sounded the same. But I must say, I've played the male shepherd this time, and I want to go again through the entire game with the female shepherd, because what I've heard, and I haven't tested it yet, is that the fem shep is a lot better compared to what it was in the previous games.
Hmm, interesting. I haven't checked up on any of that stuff, but one of the things that I wanted to bring up is I think they didn't change too much on the audio, but they probably did remixed it and increased the sample quality. Because one thing that is blatantly obvious is when you're in the Citadel in Mass Effect 1 and you go through a loading screen, you get that audio from the shot of the cars just like flying by. And that audio has artifacts, like so much artifacting. I was like, Jesus Christ. It is blatant. So I do think they probably touched up the audio. It's just the fact that back in the day, we were just used to that audio and the artifacting didn't bother anyone. And nowadays we have, higher samples, which is like, oh. And then you contrast that. I'm like, why didn't you change this audio in the loading screen? It's friggin' jarring every time you go through a loading screen.
True. But to be fair, 9 of the 10 times when I got a loading screen, I was watching something else or I alt-tabbed to wait because in Mass Effect 1, the biggest loading screen was the elevator.
Yeah. But I
If
mean,
you
with
went in, yeah,
with the SSDs, it shouldn't be that long. Was it long for you? Because like with the
no,
PS5, it's super short.
not at all.
Yeah.
And in all three games, it was really not that long.
Yeah. So in terms of like visuals and audio, which is usually the things that I like to start these types of analysis videos by, I think that overall the experience is really good. If you've played these games before, you're going to get an improved experience. If you're playing them for the first time, it's still going to feel dated. Like imagine a new player coming in 2021 playing Mass Effect for the first time. It is definitely going to feel dated. So the question then becomes, does it hold up? Like, do you think it holds up for someone that doesn't have the nostalgia that like you and I do? Because we both played this game in the past. Do you think a new player would come into this and be able to deal with some of the jank stuff that you have, for instance, Mass Effect 1? Because I feel that Mass Effect 2 already feels pretty good, and Mass Effect 3 as well. Like, it's still not by modern standards, it still feels a little bit dated, but you can deal with 2 and 3, I feel like. But 1 is kind of rough, I feel like, from getting a brand new player into the franchise.
If I would tell a person to start playing the game because they have an interest in RPG slash great stories, then I would say play Mass Effect 1. But, and this sounds really awkward if you know me, um, skip as many of the side quests as you can. Just go through the game and you're done in 11 hours and you have the story. Because Mass Effect 1 is purely based on the story. It's the way you should look at it is like in Mass Effect 1, you have no idea what is going on. You get a little bit of background information that they found an artifact from a past civilization, which boosted the technology of the humans by what was it, 1,000, 10,000 years? Can't
I
remember.
don't know, it was ridiculous
Um,
amount of years, yeah.
yeah, and they find new aliens, which apparently are the top aliens ruling the galaxy. And that's kind of where it starts. And the first mission is they want to judge you if you're a really amazing person. Um,
They
at
want to
that point in
judge
time, it
if
sounds,
you're worthy of joining like their special forces, basically.
yeah, exactly. And it sounds like a pretty basic start of a game. Like you're a special person, and we're just going to give you, like in a normal RPG, you get passed through it, you become it, and then you're suddenly ending up in saving the world. Um, this isn't different in Mass Effect, but the way they build it up
Yeah.
uh, is amazing because
So, sorry about this sudden jump cut, but Q got a little close to what I would consider spoiler territory, so I decided to edit this portion out.
that part makes Mass Effect so strong. And that's why I still say play Mass Effect 1. But like one of the side quests is get a fuck ton of minerals, just skip it. It's not worth it. Um, a lot of the side quests are not worth it. Do the downloadable content side quest. Just Google what you need to do for it. Do that one because it's really worth it. But for the rest, it has. If you play the main story, that has a true effect on the second and the third game. Uh, Most of the side quests from one don't have any consequences. So yeah, that what would be my advice if you want to go into the game. But you have to have in your head the biggest thing, the main reason why you want to play this game is because you love great stories.
Yeah, the story.
If
The
you
the
like
gameplay is going to be
shooting,
rough.
sorry, yeah. If you think I'm going into a tactical shooter, uh, no, just play Division 2. But don't think that the hiding and the shooting is comparable, or this is the rough build on where Division is made on. No,
Nah.
no,
No,
not at all.
it's in terms of like the gameplay, it's a little bit scuffed, particularly in Mass Effect 1. 2 and 3 feel a lot more solid. Mass Effect 1 was a little bit scuffed. But in terms of like RPG and whatnot, 1 is the most RPG one, I would say, because you have like the most amount of like customization for your character and whatnot, and skills to play with, and armor and weapons. Whereas in 2 and 3, it becomes more action based and it's more about the story and the action gameplay and whatnot. And by the way, I'm probably going to cut out some of the stuff that you said in your previous answer because I feel like that touches a little bit too close to spoiler territory for brand new players. And I don't want them to know some of the stuff that you said back there. So if you see an awkward cut a couple of minutes ago, that's probably why. But yeah, but basically, I think we do kind of like recommend someone that is brand new to the franchise. We still think that it is worth it to get into it because of the story. Because again, like we said at the start of this video, there really aren't that many games that provide you with the same experience that Mass Effect does, which is one of the reasons why I think it's really cool that they are remastering it and bringing it, particularly for consoles, right? Because in PC, you could still get like the older versions and whatnot, but even then, you're saying that it's a lot easier to get into the remastered version than the older versions, and from your experience, considering the amount of times that you played through them, right?
Yeah, for certain. Like
Yeah.
mainly Mass Effect 1.
Yeah.
It's even in the new one, it still feels clunky, the
Yeah.
fight style, but compared to how it was, it's way better.
And the
Um,
inventory management, dude. So many times I was going, the game was like, oh, by the way, you're reaching the inventory limit of 300 items. Make sure to clean up your inventory. And it's just like, God, stop, please.
yeah, but there was a different. You had a totally different play style than I do. Like I've played the game too many times, so the difference is what you did, which had a benefit for you for Mass Effect 2. Because the thing is, the more money you have in one, the more money you start with in
Oh, yeah,
two.
I had so much money. I had like
And
6 million credits in Mass Effect
yeah,
1.
and the way I play it, I don't sell. I just destroy until I got 909 Omni-gel, and Omni-gel doesn't really matter what it is, but
Yeah.
it's the product you get if you destroy your weapons and armor. And the rest, when I got there, I just started selling every time, and I didn't even check. Like, but that's the thing. I played the game so many
Yeah.
times that I
So
already know what I want,
you
and the
knew
rest
the good
it's sell,
weapons. I
sell.
didn't.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah, it's tricky to manage the inventory of that stuff because then you also have to go into your upgrades. The things that you slot into the weapons also count towards the inventory. So then you have to go into the upgrades and start deleting upgrades as well. I feel like they could have touched up on that a little bit. Like they could have probably made it a lot better by just unlocking the upgrades. Like that is something that I feel they could have done a lot of improvements on. Like say for instance, you get your high explosive ammunition modifier. And it's like, okay, you've unlocked high explosive, good job. Instead of them giving you like 50 different high explosive mods. And I'm just like, why? Stop, please.
I get why you say it, but on the other hand, you played it totally different than, and I'm now making assumption the also quite addicted Mass Effect players. Um, like Omnigel can make you skip side quest or the mini games, and
Oh yeah, I
I
did
think
most of the
till
mini
the end of
games.
time you did the mini games, and I never done them. It's like just slap some Omni-gel on it. Mission mini
Yeah.
game complete. Go for the next one.
Basically, like hacking minigames and lockpicking minigames and stuff like that. You can basically do a quick time thing. I don't know what it is on the PC. On the PC, you said it's different. Basically, on consoles, it's a quick time thing where you just press the faceplate buttons in the right order and boom, done. It's super easy.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's still easy in the PC as well. But we kind of get circles where there are red blocks going clockwise and counterclockwise, and you kind of need to go to the center of the circle while dodging those things. So you kind of need to find a gap and then press forward as fast as you can to get to the middle. It's boring as hell.
Yeah, so you just Omni-gel through that, yeah.
Yeah, everything.
Because you can break any item in the game to get Omni-gel, and then you can use that to kind of like skip these little mini games. But yeah, you know, all things aside, the main problem that I ended up having with Mass Effect 1, this is more of a console thing, is the fact that they didn't improve the controls. And I know that on the PC you can bind like powers to whatever key press you want, right? And I'm assuming you can remap the controls freely, right?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. If there's one thing that really annoyed me is the fact you cannot remap controls on consoles at all. It's like what you get by default is what you get, and you can't remap it. At least in the version that I had, you know, maybe they'll update it later. I don't know. But when
I don't think so.
As I'm playing through it, I still can't remap the buttons, and that is very frustrating because, you know, sometimes you just want to change something, and considering that they remastered the game, why not allow players to remap controls? It's even already done on the PC, so it can't be that hard to just do that on consoles as well.
But in the past, it was already possible for the PC. That has always been the case.
Exactly. But again, what I'm saying is the technology is there, so they just have to implement it to a gamepad. It can't be that hard. And on top of it, the other problem is that the default controls on Mass Effect 1, they only allow you to bind one power. One power. You can bind... So, like, your character can have up to, like, I don't know, friggin' 5, 6, 7 powers or something like that, depending on the class that you play. And you can only bind one of those. And to access all of the other ones, you have to bring up the power wheel, pause the game when you have the power wheel up, and then select the power you want to do, and then press it. It's super awkward. It is not...
But it's kind of funny. That was one of the things which I found funny when I was watching you play the game through. It's like when I play a biotic or an adept in Mass Effect 2, I kind of use 2 buttons. I don't even try, or 3 maybe, like an overload to get something through a shield. But for the main thing, I never ever use more buttons. Like I have 1 to 8 to fill, and the way I always have it is like 8 is for rezzing people, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. Those I fill,
but it's like... The thing is, you at least can bind 3 of them. Like, I'd be fine with being able to bind 3. I can bind 1, and then I have to go through the wheel every single time that I want to use something different, and that was extremely frustrating. So that was a problem, and I feel like that is easily solvable by changing some of the default controls that you have in the game. Like, they didn't even have to let you remap controls, but at least let us bind more than one power. And then on Mass Effect 2, they do kind of the same thing. So this time around, they're like, okay, this time we'll let you bind 2 powers instead of 1. And I'm like, okay, that's great. That's double. Fantastic. But then the thing is, they bind 1 power by default. So in effectiveness, you have 3 binds. And you're like, oh, this is great. But the thing is, I don't like the default bind for the default spell in the Adept, which happens to be Singularity. I didn't use it that much. It's just Singularity is triangle. And I'm like, okay, I want to change triangle to something else. No. Singularity is triangle. I was like, okay, I guess, you know, that is what it is. And I don't know what 3 is like, because I only played the very start of it, so I haven't touched too much on it, but I would assume it's like Mass Effect 2. So one of the things that I feel like they definitely could have improved on, particularly for a remaster like this, would have been the controls. They definitely should have changed the controls.
Yeah. The way I saw you play it on the PS5, I wouldn't have liked it at all. I truly wouldn't have liked it. That's why I'm really happy I'm playing it on the PC. And because that feels natural.
And
Yeah.
then there were even situations where then like because you're doing it with the wheel and it looks like you're aiming towards an enemy and you shoot the power and you hit like the box that was next to them instead. I was like, oh god damn it, so bad. So that
Truly
is
is.
something that they could have definitely improved on. That is something that you might have trouble with. But
Like the way I saw it on the console, like if I had to pick a class to play on the console, it's only soldier.
yeah,
Why? You're using
just
your
shoot,
gun,
just aim and shoot.
and one of the most important ability for especially 2 and 3 is adrenaline rush. And what does it do? It slows time. So it makes it so much easier to hit, which is a really strong point, especially on a console where hitting is already a lot harder than using a mouse. Um, so yeah, and that's really bad because don't get me wrong, I love playing a soldier, but the most fun class where you can do the most ridiculous combinations or use of the world is an adept.
Yeah,
It's when you and like you've done one of the quests where you're on a big ship which is flying really fast. If you pull someone up in the air, it
there's
gets pulled by the wind. It's fucking hilarious.
and they get struck by lightning halfway through. Like that's
Yep. It's the highest point. It's gone, and those things you don't have as a soldier.
yeah.
You have to have an adept to do those things, and that's why if someone plays it for the first time on the PC, I would say Mass Effect One. If you'd like a challenge, you want to do it on the highest level. Play soldier purely because that's one of the few viable classes in Mass
Yep.
Effect One, but afterwards go away from the soldier. Just pick anything else than the soldier because you're in a sci-fi world where biotics, so kind of
It's like force powers.
paranormal, yeah, exactly, capabilities are normal and you can use them. uh, then you want to use them. You don't want to be a base soldier shooting out of a pistol or a rifle. No, you want to use powers to lift them in the air, to warp them into oblivion. You want to do those things, and yeah, for me on the PC, it works like a charm. It's really well put in. It's easy to use, but on a PS5, what I've seen at least from Rui's playthrough, I would be already switching to a soldier halfway through and start over purely
It's
because I would be frustrated to keep on going through the wheel.
it's not that bad because it's like on one you have to use the wheel a lot. On two, since you have two powers, you can kind of like do pull on one and warp on the other one, and you're kind of good for the most part. It's just on top of it, I then also wanted to use like Reeve and stuff like that, and that I have to go through the wheel to do.
Yeah,
But pulling and warping works fine on console in my opinion. It's just a matter of mastering the thing because like you think you want to aim directly to the enemy, but no, you want to aim at the enemy so that it shows his little target box, and then you want to aim away from the enemy until the point where the target box is still there, but you're aiming away, so you can kind of like curve your spells. That's really cool. I really like that. I was actually surprised the first time that I did that in Mass Effect 2 because I was like, oh wow, they actually thought of this that you can actually shoot things and they'll curve around. Like I think that was almost groundbreaking at the time, at least for me, because
yeah.
most of what I've been playing at the time, I think, was World of Warcraft. So kind of like coming off of that, and then suddenly, oh, I'm warping spells and stuff. This is crazy.
Yeah, it truly is. But to come back on what you just said, yeah, but that's why I said I use 4 buttons. I have two for
Yeah,
myself, the pull and the warp. But I also have one person which, for example, has Reeve or Incinerate, and you can make two detonations quite fast in a row. And then what is that?
using
That's the
your
combination
teammates.
of, yeah, pull and warp is one explosion, which does a lot of damage. But you can do that with your two teammates as well. If you pick the right teammates, you can have a combination attack as well, meaning that even the hardest mobs you suddenly can burn down on insanity level without too much hassle.
That
Uh,
that is allowed on the console as well, though. By the way, you can actually bind things. Although I only found this out much later on the playthrough, but you can bind things to the D-pad So you can press like D-pad right, and that will use the default power of one of your teammates. You can do D-pad left, that will use the default power of the other teammate. So you can actually do the same thing.
Oh, that's great, because that's
Yeah.
really important to have a fun playthrough uh, uh, where your companions don't feel like a hassle. Because also on this part, remember it's an old game.
Yeah.
They're
AI
the
is not
way
the best.
no, they suddenly sometimes run towards mobs where you're like, there are 5 in front of you.
Oh,
They're
what
going
about
to kill you in 3 seconds, and they jump over their safety, and yeah, that
they just throw themselves at danger? But it was actually really funny. You just reminded me of the AI on Mass Effect 1, how a
yeah,
lot of the enemies, like, they don't really have proper AI. So their
nope.
strategy is they just try to bum rush you all the time. So a lot of the times I'd be like fighting, and you just see an enemy booking it all the way from across the map straight to your character, and then gets to your character, starts trying to melee. And they're so fast. They get to you so fast. You're like, what the hell? It's
Yeah, there are a
insane.
couple which have that, but it's kind of funny because
Yeah, it is.
you can use it against them as well. Like
Yeah,
in a
because you
lot of
shoot them while they're coming.
that as well. But the fun thing is, a lot of the missions in mines or in buildings, so to speak, which you find on the planets, you usually get inside. Then you have a corridor. Then you get a room. Then you get a corridor. Then you get the room where all the mobs are. It's kind of always this layout. If you stay in the corridor before the big map and you start shooting from there, they don't come in. It's fucking hilarious. They are standing mindlessly in front of you, and you can just pick them. It's
Oh my
especially
god.
the melee persons. You can just pick them. It's like, okay, these are the ones which will kill me if I run in now. I'll get them down, and then I'll continue onwards. That is, yeah.
So
It's
you
old
can
AI.
cheese it. You can
Yeah,
cheese it basically is what we're getting at.
and
But
it's on the sanity sometimes needed purely because the way they build the maps. Um, Sometimes it's really clunked. It's really full,
yeah,
and you can't really get away. And yeah, you keep on dying if you
you just
try
get
the proper
overwhelmed.
way. Yeah,
Yeah, like I got stuck in that scene in Mass Effect 2 in the collector's ship, and it's just like die and die. I was like dying for like an hour, and I wasn't even on insanity. I was only on hardcore, which is the one below that. But it also has to do with the squad that you take with you if you're playing on those levels of difficulty. So do keep that in mind. But if you're playing on normal difficulty, you can just do whatever and it should be fine. Shouldn't really be a problem. Even on veteran, I think you can get away with just about anything that you want. It's not really a big deal.
no, it's true. It's like they didn't make all the companions viable, especially for the higher difficulties. Um, like one of the advices I always give if you play 1 and 2, take a Krogan.
Yeah, take a
Always
Krogan with
take,
you.
even if you're playing a soldier, which is kind of uh, uh, um, similar to, still take a Krogan. If you play Vanguard, still take the Krogan.
Yeah.
It's really silly. And for the other one, um, in Mass Effect 1, it doesn't really matter that much. I usually take Biotic, so then you end up with Liara.
Yeah.
Um, in Mass Effect 2, yeah, I usually just stay away from Garrus. That's the biggest one to never
Poor
bring along.
Garrus. But
And
he's such a cool character. It sucks so
yeah,
much. He's such an
he,
amazing character.
he truly is. For the RPG content and the banter, he's amazing. For
Yeah.
having him as a backup in your missions, um, I've seen better cannon fodder.
Yeah, pretty much. I definitely felt that when I had like Garrison Tally in that friggin' encounter that
Yeah,
I was at. It's friggin' insane. But yeah, the controls kind of like a big complaint from my part in terms of controls on console, but on PC not really a big deal. You can play it just fine, shouldn't be a problem. Although again, this can change depending on the classes that you play
yeah,
and on the partners that you take and the difficulty that you're playing in. All of this is going to affect it in one way or another. But the most important thing about the game, because like don't feel like we're constantly talking about the challenging difficulty because both of us like the challenge, but don't feel like, oh, in order to get the best experience, I need to like play on the hardest difficulty. No, the best experience of Mass Effect is the story. Like, sure, the gameplay can be fun too, particularly more on 2 and 3, I would argue. But the story is really what gets you. The characters, the interactions, and stuff like that. That is the important part. So, like, if you're playing through Mass Effect and you're feeling like, oh my god, this gameplay is so clunky, just lower the difficulty and don't even worry about it. Just enjoy the story for what it is, because it is worth it to follow the story through. That is what I would say.
Yeah, I totally agree. There is one side note of the story. Like, if you play it the first time through and you have difficulties with enjoying the combat play style of the game, I suggest to do either like there are two things in the game, and it's called Paragon and Renegade, which means either be an angel or be a badass dude. Um, Pick one of them and stick to it.
Yeah.
And like the first time I played it through, I did kind of the same thing, which was Rui doing in his streams. It's just pick whatever feels
Yeah.
nice, what feels like what you would do yourself. And this is also kind of a bit of the problem. Like, in my opinion, a normal person sometimes will have affinity with a person or an enemy or a friendly person in front of him, and sometimes they will just hate their guts and you just want to shoot them. Um, if you play on that level, you won't get the best ending. You won't get the most out of your content because um, through the playthrough, you have regular answers, but you also have blue or red answers. Blue is for Paragon answer, red is for Renegade answer. And if you can choose those answers, you get the best out of everything. Just a simple example is
So, sorry about this sudden jump cut, but Q got a little close to what I would consider spoiler territory, so I decided to edit this portion out. The point here is that basically, if you don't stick with one certain playstyle, eventually you might get to a point where certain options are denied to you because you're not goody two shoes enough or you're not evil enough, and you can't do either. So that's the thing. That's why you're supposed to like the game expects you to either just be a good guy all the way or a bad guy all the way. It's actually one of the shortcomings of Mass Effect, in my opinion. But that's me. I always like playing morally gray characters. It's much more interesting to me. It's like, hey, I feel like killing this guy. Shoot him in the face. Boom, done. Or hey, maybe I'll save him or whatever. Maybe he won't die. You know. So that's one of the things. But that's not a remaster thing. That's a Mass Effect thing. You know, it's always been like that.
it truly is, but
So the other thing that I wanted to bring up is that so on the PC side of things, because I know that some people are still going to be like, yeah, but we still have these games. We can still play these games. You don't really need a remaster. And it's like on the PC side of things, you do have them, but like on the console side of things, the I think at some point they released like a trilogy or something like that for the PlayStation because one wasn't even available on PlayStation because initially it was only available on Xbox. And I think that trilogy was pretty bad, from my understanding. Like a lot of people have told me that thing just didn't run well. It was not very good. So the fact that they remastered it for the console is nice on account of the fact that it includes all three games. You can play through all three of them in this one fell swoop. And on top of it, it brings all of the DLC, which I wasn't even
except
sure
one
that I was. There's one DLC that it doesn't have?
Pinnacle Station of Mass Effect 1.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. I thought it had all
And
of the DLC. Why didn't it
oh,
include Pinnacle Station?
it has no story. It is kind of in. Yeah, you haven't played the last expansion with all the add-on, with all the expansions. Pinnacle Station was kind of. You went there. You went into a virtual room and you needed to kill
Oh,
monsters.
okay. So it's
So
like
it
a VR
wasn't.
simulation type thing.
Yeah, and there was a small story around where one person was really, I'm the king, blah, and eventually you get into, you beat him in the game, so to speak, and then he's pissed off and he tries to kill you, and yeah. So I understand it's not really
It's not
any
relevant to the main
exactly.
plot, is what we're
Yeah,
getting at. Okay.
it was just overpowered weapons you got from Pinnacle Station. Really overpowered weapons you got from
Still,
Pinnacle.
I don't understand why they wouldn't just include that. I don't. It's so weird
Maybe
that
it
they
was
just single out this
coding.
one DLC.
Yeah, but it was even with the old content. It was one of the few DLCs I needed to install separately from all the other ones. So I think they made that DLC different. It was really a standalone kind of thing, which you
Oh,
couldn't
okay.
play without uh, Mass Effect installed. So I think that was mainly the problem, a coding issue. They couldn't really get it into the game normally.
Hmm. Weird stuff. But okay.
Yeah.
Besides Pinnacle Station, it has all of the other DLC, and that was actually really cool because when I played through Mass Effect originally, I didn't have any of the DLCs at all. And so when I got to Mass Effect 2 and I saw like one of the DLCs, I was like, dude, what is this? I'm driving a car and now I'm on the top of a spaceship. Like, what the hell is going on? That was insane. Like, at least for the Mass Effect 2 stuff. I don't know about Mass Effect 3 because I also didn't do any DLC there. But the DLC on Mass Effect 2 I thought was really awesome. Like, really, really
It's
good.
one of the best. Like the story is great, but the extra you get into the story due to the downloadable content is 100% worth it.
Yeah,
It's
because you even get to confront one of the characters that I had never seen before. And I mean, it's alluded to in the world, and you hear about this character all the time. I'm not going to go into details, but there's this character that is kind of like very special to the world, and you get to actually go and see that character, and you know, cool stuff happens while you do that. And I was like, dude, what the hell? This is insane.
yeah, they made especially in two, but in three as well actually. But they made it really well put in, and also it didn't feel different than the main story. Like now they made it a whole game, and it's all part of it. Um, if you haven't played it the first time, I don't think you would feel which part is just regular content and which was added
Yeah,
later on.
yeah, exactly. Because like I didn't even remember that was the LC. I was just going through the mission. I was like, I don't remember playing through this mission. And then you're like, yeah, that's the LC. I was like, oh, okay, that would explain it.
Yeah, and it's really amazing, especially because like how's the game built up? In Mass Effect One, you make choices which well have consequences, but kind of only one, maybe two choices have big consequences. Most of the choices you make are kind of small. Like there is a person which is your biggest fan. You can either yeah praise him into to oblivion and tell him that he's really should try to do the best he can, or you can just yeah kick his ass down, so to speak. Um, that's just small life stuff on how you address a person and how you interact with the world. Um, but at the end of the game, you need to make choices on who will rescue what and who will kind of die.
Yeah,
The big consequence choices, which will have consequences in Mass Effect 2, but mainly in Mass Effect 3. And
yeah,
and if you then enter Mass Effect 2, um, the choices become bigger. Like there are still small things. You still have the feel of the playthrough is you help a person smile or just tell a Krogan that there are no fish in a certain water in the Citadel. It's really small life things which are kind of fun to do, but the choices on a lot of side missions or as well start to become bigger in do I save scientists or uh, do I kill this bad guy, because if I let him go away it will most likely kill tens of thousands other people. And that build up is amazing. That makes the strength of Mass Effect in its entirety.
but I think that that is more felt in Mass Effect 1 and 2. And then On 3, I feel like at least that's the complaints that I've heard from a lot of people. For me, it wasn't that much the case, but I feel like some of those choices start to have a bit of a lesser impact when you get to 3, particularly when you get to the ending of 3, because we all know about the controversy behind the ending of 3 and whatnot.
Yeah. And 3, if you play Paragon playstyle, um, it doesn't feel that much of an influence. Like you're goody two shoes anyway, so you try to help as many people that you can. You always try to talk your way out of stuff, even if you meet up with a bad guy from 1, even which is trying to kill you. Um, you sympathize with him, and the effect isn't that much felt. If you play Renegade, on the other hand, in Mass Effect 3, um, like for me, it's Mass Effect 1 and 2. A Renegade player is a person which has a heart, but just makes calculated choices. In other words, do I choose 10,000 people alive and I let 100 die? Or, yeah, just pure calculation
Yeah, calculus,
playstyle. And in 3, it isn't anymore. It's just plain evil, in my opinion,
just
at
an
least.
asshole.
You're really an asshole. It's like, why are people following that dude? It's impossible. The way he's responding, the way he
Because they fear
reacts.
him. That's why fear is a powerful motivator.
Yeah, but it's really awkward if you played 1 and 2 and you're a ruthless person, but still with a heart. And suddenly it's like, yeah, I threw away the heart. It's like, fuck that. It's now 3.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's one of the things. So like temper your expectations a little bit for 3. I think that both of us agree that the best one is 2.
yeah,
2 is the
I
best
agree.
one. It goes like 2, and then I think 1 and then 3 probably, with 3 being a little bit on the weaker side.
But it's the thing is like 1 is, as you've already stated, a true RPG.
Yeah,
2 became already more of a
action.
shooter, action shooter with a great story, and 3, it's more based on the action. I mean,
It's just kind of
like
like Hollywood.
in a way it is, but just if you think about what you can do, like in 3, suddenly you can have a heavy melee hit, and suddenly you can make builds where melee damage becomes important to do extra damage with your abilities. While beforehand, if you wanted to have melee, you would just send in the Krogan, and you stay the fuck in the back. Uh, so they made it way more on an action play style, and for me, that's why 3 is a bit, yeah, it's the
Yeah,
least
and
in it overall.
they even have like an option when you're starting a new game in 3 that they will tell you just like, oh, you want us to just pick all of your dialogue options for you and you can just enjoy this as an action game. And I was like, why would anyone play a Mass Effect game like that? That sounds terrible. Like,
I think on the PC, now I'm doubting, but I think I can do that for 2 as well.
I don't.
I,
Hmm?
I think I can on the PC at least.
No, I don't remember seeing that. At least I don't remember seeing the option, because there's like an option where it's like, hey, you just want to play this as just an action story game, just enjoy the story, and we'll pick all the dialogue for you. So like, you don't even get a dialogue wheel. Like, I think you don't even get one, because I would never play like that. But I just
Nah, neither
assumed
do
they just
I.
they just give you the cutscenes and boom, done. But you know, that's kind of like to set you guys up. Those of you that are new to the franchise and are thinking about playing Mass Effect, we still think it's worth it, but just temper your expectations when it gets to 3. 2
Yeah,
is
you
really
need
your
to,
best, is going to be your best time,
and
basically.
the reason why is because in 2, kind of what you're playing against is against all odds, and in 3 you are as well. But in 2, you try to get your team to follow you through hell, and you want your team to be there with you. So you want to know your team. So you really get into loyalty missions, which help them solve a problem, but also where you get a lot of background story about that person.
Yeah.
And even like, okay, most likely Rue will disagree on this one, but there's a person in 2, which is Jack, which is really um, well,
She
sort of
sucks
evil,
in a bad way.
biotic person. But if you start playing the loyalty mission and you hear kind of the shit she went through, um,
No, still don't care.
well, yeah, I know you wouldn't, but I did. You suddenly get a story behind why she's responding that way, and if you then think if I had to go through all that shit, I don't know if I would be that much different than how she is acting.
But basically what you're saying is that 2 has really good character development.
Yes,
Is
and
yeah.
in 3, in a way, you're of course already out of time. So in a way, I can get that you don't really have the time to do loyalty missions for your helpers, for your companions, but it lacked a bit of interaction. Like this is maybe also because I like the old school playstyle. If I talk to a person, I would love to get into a sort of cinematic kind of playstyle. Like I get a wheel, even if it's just to say goodbye. I
Yeah.
kind of want to have that interaction, choice interaction. And in 3, they removed it. Like it only happens the moment something important is going to be done. So you get a cutscene. If you click on a person and there is no cutscene, then you just see, if you put on subtitles, then you see text hovering in the air, her response or his response.
Which
And
is not as interesting as in 2, yeah.
it is not as interesting, but it's also risky because if you double tap on spacebar, which is the interaction button, you can skim the conversation. So even if you wanted to read or get the whole story out of her, you fucked it up.
Yeah,
You
you don't
already
get to
double
read it.
click. You don't get it back. So and a lot of the banter which is happening in Mass Effect 3 is awesome,
Yeah.
but it's banter now. It's just text floating in the air. They're talking to each other. You need to stand still. So it's really not click on the person to get it. No, it's just stand still, listen to it. If you stand there long enough, this is really bad. Then you get suddenly paragon points because apparently you did something good. Have patience to listen to a conversation. Um, yeah, it's really bad, but
I didn't even know that was a thing for Mass Effect
yeah,
3.
it is, and but a lot of people don't because a lot of people's like click, click, click. No, nothing. I'm gone. Yeah, you
Yeah.
lost it. You lost Paragon points. Sorry. Better luck next time.
So
Uh,
weird.
yeah, it truly is weird and sad in a way as well. So they kind of went a bit too far, in my opinion, with 3.
With the action, yeah.
Yeah,
But still overall as a package, I think it's worth it. Now the question becomes, what about the price point? And I think that there's 2 things here that is important to point out, because I think that there's going to be a price point that people are going to be willing to pay if they are a new player, like someone who's coming in fresh to the franchise. And there's probably a different price point for someone who's returning to the franchise. Now, in your case, you were returning to the franchise and you just bought it like full price. You didn't even care,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
It was a no-brainer. But also, just think about it. It's like 60 euros for 3 games. So it's of course old games, so don't get me wrong. I
Yeah,
think even in
that's the point.
like I've seen Mass Effect 1, I think on Origin for like 3 euros or something, and
I
Mass
bought
Effect
it
2
for
for
like 5, God knows how many
yeah
years
for
ago.
5, something like that. Yeah, I mean compared to, it's a lot. If
Yeah.
you're a returning player and you think like I just can't stand the clunky, the extremely clunky Mako slash auto melee slash fight style of 1, then worth buying. Then you suddenly get through Mass Effect 1 without too much hassle, with a feeling that it is fresh enough to get through the entire game. And from point Mass Effect 2 and 3, you're already in that mode again because you finished 1 and you're already in your head, already thinking of the awesome side quests which you remember, and you continue onwards and you want to do everything. You just go through it and it's worth the 60 euros. If you're a new player which is below 30, and you're used to Fortnite or used to graphics like Call of Duty, um,
It's
wait
gonna be
for a
rough.
sale.
Yeah.
Wait for a
See,
sale.
it's interesting because my opinion is the exact opposite of yours. Like I think returning
Oh,
players, because they've already played through the game, I don't think it is maybe as valuable for them unless they're like super fans like you clearly are. And I think that for those players, maybe wait for a sale because you've already played through the game, so it's not going to be something new for you, right? So it's whatever.
hmm
You can wait for. I think 40 euros would be the ideal price point for this, personally. But if you're a brand new player that is interested in getting into Mass Effect, then I think the price is fine. Because if you've never played through the game before and you're a brand new player, there's just so much content here and an amazing story to go through that I think it's fine. But for returning players, I do make the argument that, like, I don't know, depends on how much you want to play it. And at that point, people that have played through the game, they know how much they want to play it. They know how much that is worth to them. But I think 40 euros would make it easier. I almost think that it'd be really cool if they made like a special promotion for people that own like one of the older Mass Effects and give them a discount. Because I think you got this where on Steam.
Yeah, I did.
I'm pretty sure that on Steam they can check like I mean they've done that. I think they did that for Dark Souls. Like if you had the original Dark Souls, they would sell you Dark
Yeah,
Souls
but the thing
remaster at a
is,
cheaper price.
you buy it on Steam because I was thinking that I can get rid of Origins, but you get linked to Origins. So yeah.
But still, what I'm saying is like you. I feel like they should have done something to people that already own Mass Effect and maybe do like a special promotion for those
Like
people and get it a little bit
it
cheaper
would be
for
really
them.
awkward if would be awkward if I said no because hey, if I had to spend less, I would of course
Yeah,
accept it. But yeah, no, I stick with my opinion in the way of if you truly are a Mass Effect player or you loved the story, um, like the thing is, even though I hadn't played it for quite a while because yeah, it becomes really outdated. Um, uh, it's kept sticking in my mind. Like if I thought about an amazing game, or I was thinking, okay, I'm done with my current game, or what will I play now? Mass Effect always popped up in my head. It's
yeah.
always one of the games which always pops up in my head. But if I then go to Origins and I click on Mass Effect 1, do you want to install it?
It
And
was
I'm
like,
like,
maybe not.
maybe not exactly. And that's why, in my opinion, but that's why I also said age kind of style. Like if you're
Yeah,
above 30, then you kind of grew up with this game, like I
yeah,
did. Um, uh, then yeah, for those people, yeah, it sounds really bad. But we have the money 9 out of 10 times since we're all above 30. We have a job, get paid. Yeah, suddenly 60 euros sounds like a whole lot less than when I was a student. Um, yeah, I can see both points of view. But it's all depending on what you want. Like if you're, as Rui stated, a new player, and your main aim is a really rich story, worth it.
yeah.
60 bucks, worth it.
But if you're looking
If
to get like amazing gunplay gameplay out of this, yeah,
yeah, if you find the story important, but yeah, you find the fighting style, the play style also a really important part of a game. Yeah, wait for a sale because
yeah,
I still
maybe,
think you should play it, but then wait for it because then at least you really get buck for your money.
yeah.
Uh, um, I've finished them all. I've completed every side quest in the game, anything you can think of, and I spent around 130 hours into the game, all three of them. And you need to imagine I can really just randomly state sentences they have in conversations
Yeah,
due
so
to
like
I've played it so many times. I know what I do.
the
So
the point is he knows how to beeline this game, and it still took him 140 hours to get through all three of them. So yeah,
yeah,
you're gonna
it's
get a lot
really
a lot of
worth it.
hours. Yeah,
Yeah, it's worth it, and you really want to do it all.
and then
At least if you like the play style or you like story based games, then you really want to experience everything.
And then if you find yourself like, okay, man, I loved it. I played through it. I played through the whole thing. Aren't there more Mass Effect games? Then there's another one. It's called Andromeda. And that one you wait for like a discount where you can get it for 99 cents and then you can buy it.
If you've never played Mass Effect, ever.
Don't play Andromeda.
None of them. No, none of them. But you have an open mind and you find the fight playstyle very important. Start with Andromeda.
Oh yeah, and Andromeda's combat is amazing.
Start with Andromeda.
And here's the thing, and Andromeda's combat is in fact really good. The problem is that the story and a lot of the polish in the game, it's not that great.
Yeah, exactly. But as I said, it's the only downside is if you start with Andromeda, you get a couple of spoilers which happen in Mass Effect 1, which is a bit sad. But yeah, like if Andromeda was the first Mass Effect coming out, it would have been an amazing game.
Yeah, if it was
clunky, it would have been bad in certain ways, but it would have been a classic. It would be really awkward, but it would have been a classic. But because we have Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, which made the bar go through the roof, it would be in comparison, it's meh. It's meh.
So yeah, if you do end up getting like Legendary Edition, and then you're thinking, oh, I want more Mass Effect, like you only get Andromeda on a very deep discount, because I still enjoyed some of the time that I spent with Andromeda. Like I have a review somewhere on the channel that I did, but Andromeda has a lot of problems. But anyways, basically that's kind of like our overall opinion on the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. I still want to play through the rest of it because I am having a really good time going through Mass Effect 2 and eventually going through 3. Sure, I'll enjoy that as well, even though not as much as 2, obviously. We do think that it is worth it, particularly for new players. Players that never experienced the Mass Effect and they're curious about trying it out because, again, it's just all of the games in one go with all of the DLC with the exception of Pinnacle Tower. And, I think it's good. And I think it's good that they did do a remaster of it because we don't talk about game preservation enough. And there's a lot of games that end up being lost to time. So like, I always want to like tell people about how amazing Soul Sacrifice Delta is, but nobody can play it because it's on the Vita. And it's like, there's nobody's playing the Vita anymore. Like that thing is gone forever. And the fact that they never do a remaster of it just means that game is probably going to be dead forever, which sucks. So it's like, I think that in the spirit, at least, of preserving and Mass Effect being the cult classic that it is, I mean, now it's more of a mainstream classic. I guess the original one was a cult classic, Mass Effect 1. But I think that's overall a positive thing for people to enjoy. I do wish they hadn't messed with the cinematics, particularly trying to score virtue points or whatever. And I wish that they had touched up on the controls some more because, particularly on the console side of things, that would have been a big improvement. But they didn't, so, you take the good with the bad, and it's up to you guys to decide if that is worth it for you or not. But that is going to be it. This video, if you guys enjoyed it, hit the like button. If you did not enjoy it, hit the dislike button. Feedback is important. See you guys on the next one. Stay strong. Stay safe. Peace out.